When I was younger, I always dreamed of marrying a man who would take care of me, provide for me, and love me unconditionally. I would close my eyes at night and picture a beautiful home with a garden filled with flowers, a house where laughter echoed through the walls, and a man who would look at me like I was his whole world. In my imagination, he was tall and strong, with warm eyes that held kindness and a voice that soothed my worries. I thought love was enough. I thought that when you loved someone deeply, the universe would make sure you never lacked anything. I was born into a poor family, where every day was a struggle. The kind of poverty we lived in was not just about missing meals, it was the kind that weighed on your soul, the kind that made you feel small in a world that never seemed to notice you. Our house was tiny, with cracked walls that let in the cold at night and a leaky roof that couldn't keep out the rain. The kitchen was always quiet, not because we preferred silence, but because there was rarely anything cooking on the stove. I remember waking up many mornings to the sound of my mother sighing, staring at the empty food cupboard as if willing something to appear. My parents tried their best. My father worked long hours, but no matter how hard he labored, his earnings were never enough. My mother took on small jobs, washing clothes for neighbors or selling whatever she could in the market. But no matter how much they struggled, we always seemed to be behind on rent, behind on school fees, behind on life. Hunger became my closest companion. Some nights, I went to bed with an empty stomach, pressing a hand to my belly as if that would silence its growls. Other times, I watched my younger siblings cry for food while my mother wiped their tears with a helpless look in her eyes. But it wasn't just food or money that we lacked. Love, too, was a scarce resource in our home. My parents were too exhausted from the weight of survival to offer affection. I don't blame them now. They were simply too busy trying to keep us alive. There were no bedtime stories, no warm hugs, no reassuring words. Just a constant reminder that life was hard, and we had to learn to be strong. From a young age, I understood that if I wanted anything in life, I had to fight for it myself. No one was going to hand me anything, and waiting for help was a waste of time. I had to be smart, had to be quick, had to find my own way out of the never-ending cycle of poverty. And that's exactly what I did. When I was in my 20s, I discovered something about myself, something that changed the way I looked at life and survival. I realized that men were willing to give me things, money, gifts, attention, all for a small price. It wasn't something I planned, and at first, I didn't even recognize it for what it was. It started small, almost innocently. A lingering smile, a playful laugh, a touch on the arm during conversation. Men noticed me, and when they did, they wanted to impress me. The first time it happened, I was surprised. A man I barely knew offered to buy me lunch after a brief chat. It was so easy, so effortless. I didn't ask for anything, yet he gave. And then it happened again. And again. At first, I told myself it was just kindness. That these men simply liked my company. But as time went on, I realized the truth, this was a game, and I had the power to play it. My beauty was a currency, and the world was full of men willing to spend. It didn't take long for me to sharpen my skills. I learned what to say, how to dress, and how to move in a way that made men want to give. It was thrilling, intoxicating even, to know that with the right smile, I could make a man reach for his wallet without a second thought. I no longer had to worry about struggling like my parents did. I had found a way to survive, a way to have the things I wanted without working myself to the bone. As I grew older, I stopped feeling guilty about it. In my mind, it was simple. They wanted me, and I wanted security. It was a fair exchange. The world had taught me that love didn't pay bills, that hard work wasn't always rewarded, and that those who played smart were the ones who lived comfortably. So, I played. And I played well. It wasn't something I was proud of, but it became my way of life. I told myself that survival came first, that pride wouldn't put food on the table or pay the bills. I needed money, and this was the only way I knew how to get it. At first, I thought it would be temporary. Just a phase, something I would do until I found a better way. But as the years passed, it became a part of me, a habit I couldn't break. The thrill of easy money, the comfort of knowing I would never go hungry, the security of having men willing to take care of me, it was hard to walk away from. By the time I met my husband, this life had already shaped me. It wasn't just something I did, it was who I had become. I had spent years learning how to attract men, how to keep them interested, how to get what I wanted without ever truly giving anything away. But he was different. He didn't look at me the way other men did. He didn't see me as something to be bought, as a prize to be won. His eyes held something I wasn't used to: genuine care, respect, something deeper than desire. From the very beginning, he treated me like I was special, like I mattered beyond what I could offer. He was kind, gentle, and patient. He listened when I spoke, laughed at my jokes, and never made me feel like I had to impress him. With him, I wasn't just a beautiful face or a momentary thrill. I was a person. For the first time in a long time, I felt something unfamiliar: hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the kind of love I had once dreamed of as a little girl. For the first time in a long time, I wondered if I could leave my past behind. If I could start fresh, be a good wife, and build a life with him without the secrets that weighed on my soul. A part of me longed for that: a normal life, a real marriage, a future where I didn't have to rely on my beauty to survive. Maybe, just maybe, this was my chance at something different. Something better. But habits are hard to break. No matter how much I wanted to change, the past had a way of creeping back in, whispering to me when I least expected it. Marriage wasn't enough. At first, I truly tried. I wanted to be the perfect wife, the kind that every man dreamed of. I woke up early to prepare breakfast, made sure the house was spotless, and greeted my husband with a warm smile when he came home. I played my role well, doing everything a good wife was supposed to do. And my husband? He adored me. He treated me with kindness and patience, always making sure I was happy. He held my hand when we walked, kissed me softly before bed, and reminded me every day that I was loved. For a while, I convinced myself that this was enough. That his love would fill the empty spaces inside me, that our life together would erase the past I had buried so deeply. But love wasn't always enough. No matter how much I tried to silence the restless voice inside me, it never truly went away. The life I had lived before, the thrill, the excitement, the power I held over men, had left a mark on me, one that marriage alone couldn't erase. I told myself that I should be happy, that I had everything a woman could ask for. But deep down, I knew something was missing. My husband provided for me, but not in the way I was used to. He was a good man, hardworking, honest, and simple. He made sure we had food on the table and a roof over our heads. He paid the bills on time and never let me go without the basics. But that was just it, basics. He couldn't afford the luxurious life I secretly desired. The kind of life where money was never a worry, where I could wake up in silk sheets, shop without checking price tags, and dine in high-end restaurants. He didn't buy me expensive jewelry or surprise me with designer handbags. There were no fancy vacations, no extravagant gifts, just a simple, steady life. He never even suspected that I wanted more. He never saw the longing in my eyes when I watched other women flaunt their wealth. He never noticed the way I admired the wives who had husbands that showered them with everything their hearts desired. He assumed that as long as we had love, I would be content. But love doesn't buy luxury. And that's when I met my neighbor, David. David lived next door with his wife and 2 children. On the surface, he was just another family man, respectable, well-dressed, and charming in a way that made people listen when he spoke. But beneath that polished image was something else, something that set him apart. David was wealthy, and he carried himself like a man who had never known struggle. His car was sleek, his suits were tailored, and his wife wore the kind of jewelry I had only seen in magazines. There was an effortless confidence about him, the kind that came with knowing he had power, not just money, but influence. From the very first day I moved in with my husband, David noticed me. It wasn't obvious at first, just a glance here and there, a polite smile whenever we crossed paths. But soon, I realized those glances lingered a little too long, that his smiles held something more than neighborly warmth. His compliments were always carefully chosen, just innocent enough to sound casual but laced with something deeper. "You always look beautiful, even when you're just running errands," he once said, his eyes roaming over me in a way that made my skin tingle. He had a way of making me feel seen in a way my husband never did. And that was dangerous. One evening, while my husband was away on a business trip, I found myself sitting outside, lost in thought. David approached me with his usual charm. "You look lonely," he said, sitting beside me. I laughed softly, shaking my head. "I guess I'm just thinking." He studied me for a moment before speaking. "A woman like you shouldn't have to feel lonely." I turned to look at him, unsure of what to say. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope, placing it in my hand. "What's this?" I asked. "Just a little something, if you'd like to come over and have a drink with me." I stared at the envelope, my heart pounding. I knew what he was offering. I had been in this situation before. But this time, it was different. This time, I was married. And yet, I took the envelope. That night, I went to David's house. We drank, we talked, and then, things happened. The next morning, when I left, there was more money waiting for me. I told myself it was a one-time thing. But it wasn't. Each time my husband left for a business trip, David would invite me over. It always started the same way, a casual visit, just two neighbors sharing a drink, talking about life, laughing over small things. But we both knew where it would lead. Sometimes, it was just conversation and wine, a lingering touch here and there. Other times, it was more. Much more. And each time, before I walked out of his door, he would press money into my hand. At first, I hesitated. I told myself it wasn't about the money, that I was simply enjoying the thrill, the attention. But the truth was undeniable, I wanted it. I needed it. The crisp bills in my palm made everything feel justified, as if it was a fair exchange. As if I wasn't doing something terribly wrong. Guilt came, but it never stayed long. I would sit in my own home, staring at the money, telling myself I was betraying my husband. That I should stop. That if he ever found out, it would destroy him. But the money was too tempting, and the excitement was too addictive. I convinced myself it wasn't hurting anyone. That as long as my husband never found out, it didn't matter. That I could have it both ways, the security of my marriage and the luxury David offered. I was wrong. David's wife was often away, visiting her family in another town, so no one suspected a thing. I became an expert at lying, at pretending. When my husband was home, I played the role of the perfect wife. But the moment he left, I slipped back into my old ways. It was a double life, and I was getting away with it. Until I wasn't. One evening, after spending the night at David's house, I returned home to find my husband sitting in the living room. He wasn't supposed to be back yet. My heart stopped. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "I was just visiting a friend." He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, he pulled out his phone and held it up. "I got a message," he said. "From someone who saw you leaving David's house, late at night." I felt my entire body go cold. "Is it true?" he asked. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My mind raced, searching for a lie, an excuse, anything to save myself. But deep down, I knew there was no escape. Tears filled my eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered. My husband closed his eyes for a long moment, then stood up. "I loved you," he said. "I trusted you." I reached for him, but he stepped back. "You had everything," he continued. "Maybe I couldn't give you the life you wanted, but I gave you my heart. And you threw it away." I fell to my knees, sobbing. "Please, don't leave me. I'll stop. I'll change." But he just shook his head. "It's too late." And with that, he walked out of the house. Days passed, then weeks. My husband didn't return. He stopped answering my calls. And then, one day, I received the divorce papers. David. He stopped calling too. He got scared. He didn't want his wife to find out, and so, just like that, he cut me off. I was left with nothing. The money was gone. The love was gone. Everything I had built was destroyed. And I had no one to blame but myself. Sitting alone in my empty house, I finally understood the truth. Silence surrounded me, heavy and suffocating, a painful reminder of everything I had lost. The walls that once held warmth now felt cold, the rooms that once echoed with laughter now stood still. I had spent so much time chasing what I thought I wanted, blind to what truly mattered. And now, there was nothing left. Some mistakes can never be undone. No matter how much I wished, no matter how many nights I cried, I couldn't turn back time. I had chosen money over love, greed over loyalty, and in the end, I paid the price. I traded the steady comfort of my husband's love for the fleeting thrill of luxury. I let my desires lead me down a path I could never return from. And now, I had nothing. If I could go back in time, I would have done things differently. I would have been honest. I would have been faithful. I would have chosen love over the illusion of wealth. But life is cruel, it doesn't give second chances. So here I am, trapped in my own choices, drowning in the weight of my regrets. And I must live with them, forever.